A dramatic new court ruling in Long Island, New York. It could have a major impact on the outcome of the Gilgo Beach serial killing trial. We now know cutting-edge DNA testing of evidence will be permitted. Rex Heuermann is currently awaiting his day in court for the murders of 7 women. Their bodies were found over the span of decades. This new DNA testing has already linked Heuermann to 6 of the 7 women. Here with us is former prosecutor and criminal defense attorney Jeremy Eldridge. Jeremy, welcome back. Nice to see you.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Of course. This is the first time this form of evidence will be permitted in a New York courtroom. Explain to me what led to the judge's decision on this.
Well, the first thing that a judge looks at when deciding whether scientific evidence, especially something that is novel or innovative, is admissible in court is that evidence generally accepted within the scientific community? Meaning, is it reliable? And then also, has it been accepted in other courts? So we know that this type of evidence has been accepted in California courts. They heard expert testimony discussing its reliability. We know it was used in California to catch the Golden State Killer. And so the judge in this case believed that the evidence was reliable enough that the jury should hear it.
We know this case was unsolved for decades. It was the technology you and I are talking about that led to Heuermann's arrest in 2023. Going forward, and you mentioned this has already been allowed in other states like California, how is this evidence going to help the prosecution?
It's essentially their entire case when you think about it, because this type of DNA testing allows for the testing of degraded or minimal samples. And here we know, as you said, that a lot of the victims' bodies were found years later. We know that some of the hair samples, if they're rootless, for instance, weren't available to be tested using what we've done for decades, which is STR testing. And so because of this new technology and because it'll be admissible in court, there's a huge advantage that the government now has in prosecuting these cases. And it actually goes to the next point, which is because the DNA is now admissible, will the court allow all of these matters to be tried together, meaning all of the victims' cases tried in one trial? And there's a million good reasons as to why the DNA admissibility only makes that argument stronger.
And you know this better than I do. This is a massive blow to the defense. After the judge's ruling, Heuermann's attorney disagreed with that decision. He said, quote, "It's clear that they did not sustain their burden." You're a criminal defense attorney, Jeremy. How does this affect their strategy moving forward?
It makes their case very difficult to win at trial. But what they're going to hone in on here, which is pretty obvious, is that, number one, the DNA testing wasn't done at a state facility, right? So they're going to go in on the fact that this is done privately. And we know things like comparative bullet lead analysis, CBLA, that used to be done to match bullets, and that was junk science, or dental bite science. We know that was junk science. They're going to be trying to say to that jury, this science isn't reliable. You shouldn't exactly believe just what they're telling you just because they're saying that the DNA matches. It's new science, and we know that we've seen problems with other types of science in the past that have reversed cases and then ordered new trials. So I think the defense is going to be incredibly hampered by this. They have DNA for 6 to 7 victims using this new technology, and so they're going to have a difficult time defending this case if all they're going to be able to do is say it's junk science.
As we're following the judge's decision to allow this new technology as evidence in the courtroom, our Ashley Banfield spoke with John Ramsey. Of course, he is the father of John Benet Ramsey. He weighed in on this. Here's what he said.
We've got to use this technique. I firmly believe that it'll solve the case. If we do it and we don't get a solution, then by gosh, I'll give you guys credit. You did everything that technically can be done today. But it's a huge advance in the use of DNA technology. You know, the last DNA testing in our case was done about 8 or 9 years ago. Technology has advanced dramatically.
Yeah, there's no doubt technology has changed so much in over a decade. Does this decision set a precedent for other unsolved cases, Jeremy?
Of course it does. Not only is this technology available to solve cases potentially like Jean Benet Ramsey's case, but the other part of it is there has to be a cautious optimism, right? Because this hasn't been tested in courts. So we're talking about 2 different issues. One is, can it potentially solve crimes? With this genome testing, you'll be able to do family lineages. Is somebody related so you can find a defendant? No different than what you saw with the Golden State Killer. But you also have to understand that if this is tested in court, if there are problems with this reliability of the scientific testing, and then cases are reversed and remanded, that could be hurtful to victims too. So courts really have to be careful when they're allowing novel or innovative scientific procedures into court, because you never want to put the victim or the defendant through an entire trial that only gets reversed and remanded because bad decisions were made. This really has to be done thoughtfully and carefully.
Jeremy, I only have about 30 seconds for your answer, but I really want to get this question in. As you and I have been talking about, Heuermann is accused of killing 7 women. According to court records, we saw stray hairs that were linked to the suspect to 6 out of the 7 women. There's another hearing scheduled later this month on whether or not to separate the cases, whether he should be, tested or, seen for all 6 murders or just one individually. What do you expect to happen during that hearing?
I think it's likely that the matters will be joined, meaning tried together, especially with some of the decisions regarding DNA, pattern, absence of mistake. A lot of that evidence is allowed to be joined into one trial, so I think it's highly likely.
Thank you for watching. Subscribe below and download our NewsNation app right now on your phone, and you will get fact-based, unbiased news for all Americans.